Boom.
Cool. There we have Paul.
There
Awesome.
we go.
I see there's some peeps joining too. Welcome everyone. Even got a heart there. That's a good start. Thank you guys. Amazing. So, hey, my name is Marcus, and this is the first time that I ever speak publicly. And so this is the first time you hear my voice. So I'm a little bit nervous, but I think this is going to be fun. Um, I have a little bit backstory to why we're doing this live. Is basically that I've been thinking for quite some time, to be honest, to do more content where I speak and where I want to explain things. But then I realized that I'm not the expert. I'm just like a mid-pack rider. I'm a newbie. I only rode my bike now for 4 years, and I do a lot of mistakes. And you're probably going to hear about a couple of them right here today. And so that got me thinking. While I was out riding one day, I was like, why don't I start with Instagram Live or something similar to invite people that has way more experience and way more expertise than me. And so you might know that I'm working with some different brands. And today we have the opportunity to speak to the most incredible person that I met lately. His name is Paul Sollenberger, and he works with the Cermicspeed, and he's a senior product manager there. He's been with the company for 10 years. But I'm not going to steal your thunder too much now, Paul. So hey, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Marcus. That's a hell of an intro there, and I'm excited. And yeah, awesome to be here to help launch this off and see how it can go.
Perfect. I'm right here in one of the bedrooms in my house. Right now, I'm in northern Germany. Just let the audience know where are you based right now?
I'm in our U.S. office in Boulder, Colorado, sitting in what used to be the Friction Facts efficiency lab here.
I see all the products behind you there. I think we're going to speak about a few of them.
A few of them, yeah.
Um, awesome. So let me just start off a little bit easy on you, right? So what kind of bike do you ride, and why do you ride?
So I've been a rider since I was a kid. It was that first thing to, ride to the park, ride to school, and it was a family activity, racing from a young age. But I do gravel, mountain bike, road, ride a little bit of everything. For this audience, my gravel bike is a Bentham GS1, set up with 650s, and kind of just a fun. It's my super commuter, ride all over the Front Range kind of rig.
That's awesome. I ride a lot of 650V as well, and there's a big debate about that. And I've gotten so many questions, and that's actually also one of the reasons why I wanted to do more content where I speak, but I didn't feel comfortable doing that. So that's a different topic that I'm going to bring up later on. So that's a teaser for everyone that joins right now. That we're going to talk about 650V versus 700C, not 750D, whatever it's called now. That sounds ludicrous, so I'm not going to include that. Cool. So I would like to thank the audience as well for sending a lot of questions. Unfortunately, the last question box that I put out on Instagram actually didn't work, so I haven't received any of those questions. So these are the questions that I got from last week from you guys, so much appreciated. You can as well, I think there is a Q&A functionality around here, so you can also send questions, and I'll try to see if I can dig them up from the interface. I never used this interface in Instagram before, so bear with me. But otherwise, I have prepared a little bit. And the first very interesting question is, so is it actually true that your favorite food is banana pancakes?
It might not be my favorite food, but it's definitely one that has a fun inside story. Going back to when I started with Cermicspeed, more than 8 years ago, go traveling with what is now a really good friend of mine, Red Bull videographer Jesper Gronemark, and I had not a clue of any Danish, and we would leave to go and travel, and he'd say "Udekommunen," which is now a tattoo on my arm. Get out of the community, go travel. And I would respond with banana pancakes because I had no clue what he was saying, and I'm just kind of a smart ass like that. So, yeah, it's got a fun backstory though. But yeah, I'll never pass down some banana
Banana
pancakes.
pancakes, that's awesome. Is it maple syrup then as well?
Oh yeah,
Or
yeah, still gotta have the maple syrup.
yeah, yeah, I love that. I love that too. That's one of the things, one of the greatest things. But tell me, you work at Cermicspeed. Can you tell me how does that story start? Where is that company coming from?
Yeah, so this is actually a really cool one because it's not cycling related specifically. We are on, going almost to our 20-year anniversary of being established as a company, but we go back even earlier to 1998. Our founder, JC Jakobsismadia, he was looking to actually set an inline skating record, a furthest distance skated in 24 hours, and he couldn't achieve this 500-kilometer, glass ceiling, and studied some
Skating like
technologies.
Nordic skis or like inline
Like
skates or
roller skates, inline
roller
skates,
skates.
four big
Holy
wheels in them.
moly.
Yeah.
Yeah, of
So
course.
he did some studying inspired by NASA technology of the 90s, and that's where the first application of a hybrid ceramic bearing used in sports application was used. And he broke the record over 500 kilometers in 24 hours. So we went from
Wow.
there was a problem to solve, and he found a way to keep the wheels spinning, so to say, and further that record, and that started the proof of concept of using these hybrid ceramic bearings for sports.
Oh, that's amazing. That's a great backstory. Like really trying to solve a real life problem, or I mean, maybe it was not a, I mean, like that, but then making
He
that
was
such
determined.
such a huge thing that it became incredible. And I'm kind of also sort of partially also very happy about Cermicspeed because this Cermicspeed is based off of Denmark, and I'm from Sweden, which is a neighboring country. So I kind of also almost think that Cermicspeed belongs to. I mean, yeah, almost Swedish.
There's a good connectivity in the Nordics, so definitely proudly based there in Denmark. I was just there the last 2 weeks.
Yeah. All right. Now we're going to get into some of the other sort of tougher questions. And this is also a big debate, and I've been chatting a lot with people about this, and I think there's sort of many truths to these kind of stories about oil versus wax. Where do you stand on that, and why?
Wax through and through. And the big piece of that is I was fortunate to get to stand by Jason Smith as he did a lot of the testing with friction packs and such, and seeing how different lubricants worked on chains. A clean chain is a fast chain, and it's not just the mental "my bike's clean," but you don't have the sticky, the grippiness of a wet lubricant or something like that. When you have that clean wax drivetrain, it automatically is going to stay cleaner longer because stuff's not going to stick to it, and then you're also going to have less friction because it takes less energy for the chain to lift off the chain rings, off the pulleys. It's 8 different points of contact and articulation through a drivetrain. It's a lot of little movements, and that's what just adds up. So I am a lazy rider. I want to park the bike after the ride. I'm going to come back, check the air on the next ride and get back out there. I use our app here. I'm going to shamelessly plug the Cermicspeed app because it reminds me to keep up on my own maintenance better. But a clean drivetrain, I do a whole lot less work on my bike, and I don't have to clean it as often. So
Yeah.
we're spoiled here in Colorado. We don't deal with a lot of the mud and the wet. So I appreciate the drivetrain, dry wax keeps everything running smoother and cleaner.
Yeah, and that actually brings me to that segues into maybe a question that I have for you as well. Like, okay, I have three different loops, three different. There's
Yep.
one that says, what does this one say? It says indoor and track. This one says wet condition, and this one says all conditions. Why do I need all three? Like,
It's a solid
seriously.
question. I'm totally an all conditions rider. The all conditions product is what we've had in the market for the last few years. So that was the larger black round bottle, the Ceramicspeed UFO drip. That is now the all conditions. So that's what I use through and through. I have dry, dusty conditions. I get intermittent, mountain rains. That's just a few sprinkles. Very happy with how that product holds up for those conditions. 300 kilometers or so. For me, it's like weekly or so that I'm throwing a fresh coating on the chain, but I don't usually have to clean it in between. I can just throw a fresh coating and it stays clean.
But
Then
now,
if you
I mean,
go
now
on.
when we're getting, maybe I'm interrupting you, but now we're getting into the season where it starts to come sort of things from the sky falling down on us. And some people then stay inside, some stay outside. I do both,
Well,
kind of. And
and this is where, yeah, these
yeah,
next two products kind of perfectly answer that. The first one, the wet conditions, well, a lot of Northern Europe, the spring classic racing season, that kind of stuff deals with a lot of moisture. And the enemy of wax, when we don't have the oil to it, then water is going to soften it and basically
mm,
work it away quicker. So that was a
hey,
shortcoming in the all conditions. If you were riding in properly wet, consistent, pouring down conditions, that's where waxes are, weaker. So we were able to formulate a new formula that has, a little bit more adhesion to it. It's using some different modifiers in the waxes there, some that lean into oils. It doesn't run quite as clean, so you're not going to ride it in dusty, dry conditions, but it does phenomenal in holding up against the wet conditions. So is that, complement to where did the original UFO drip, lack a little bit? This is the one that can stand there and, give the ultimate efficiency while also running clean as possible in those wetter conditions.
There's so many questions popping up in my head, but now I'm going to ask you because you mentioned it, UFO. I mean, for me, that's something that has to do with extraterrestrials, right? But why?
Out of this world, right? Actually, originally, it is ultra fast optimization. So that
Oh,
stems back
okay,
even before Cermicspeed brought the UFO family to market. It stems back to Friction Facts. Developing this as a blended wax treatment and optimizing these chains by hand. So we still
cool.
continue with that hand optimization of the chains, just on a larger scale in Denmark now. And now the UFO family itself has grown to encompass a whole range of bike care products to take care of, all under the name of ecologically friendly, biodegradable, and efficiency.
Yeah, cool. I mean, someone like me that's been sort of raised with ET and stuff like that, I love UFOs. So for me, it's kind of fits perfect. Um, but to segue to a different thing, you mentioned that the drip wax does not only include wax, right? And that's brings me to my next topic because there is this scale of also perception of people that sort of, oh, if you want to do wax, you should go hardcore waxing, and then you can only do hard wax, right? You need to immerse it, you need to melt the wax, and you need to have the crock pot and all those things, right? But that's a cumbersome process, right? So I've tried it, and then taking off the chain, you have to clean
Mm-hmm.
it, you have to do this and that, and you have to wait, and you have to put it on, and blah 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 blah. Yeah, you know the drill. So why do Cermicspeed not do a hard wax? Why do you only have drip waxes? Why?
Well, it's fairly simple in how we, got the feedback from the broader market. There is a growing contingency that does do the crockpot method, and
Mm,
it's almost a kind of meditative. I'm going to, go through these steps. I know I'm preparing it and that kind of stuff. That was the root of the UFO chain. That was originally how the UFO chain was done. We just do it in industrial size ovens now instead of a crockpot. So we're still going through a heated chain and a melted wax formula, dunking the chain full submersion, bringing it out. That's how the UFO chain or factory optimization is done. So why we don't then offer just the the hot wax as it stands there today right now was we wanted the other version. We wanted the liquid chain coating in a bottle to where you didn't have to remove the chain and keep up with the quick links and having the dripping and oh, we're going to make stew, so let me get out of the crock pot. You get the difference, the different steps there versus myself. I want to just throw a coating on the chain, let it dry, and then I can go for a ride without having to keep up with those pieces. So
true.
the UFO drip family, we're a bit stubborn about it. We call it a coating, and we want to treat it as a liquid chain coating. So not an oil or a lubricant specifically, but a
Okay.
coating. So it's a bottled coating. We want to put a heavy coating on the chain, allow it to dry on there, and that's akin to doing the submersion wax and then placing it on the chain
Ah,
on the
cool.
bike.
I will try to remember to call it coding from now on then.
It just gives us a different way to think of
Yeah,
it because the number one rule with lube always was less is more, don't put so much on, but we're
yeah,
trying to replicate a submerged wax
yeah.
coating, so you can't submerge it and only have a little on there. You want to properly have a coating, and so using that term as a coating helps kind of resonate in the mind. It's not just a lube, it's not oil drop by drop, but rather I want to put a liquid coating on my
Oh, that's
chain.
true. And then this also brings me to my next question, which is also coming from some of the audience and the followers, right? That how much do I need to put on there? Like you all, this is funny. And how should I do it? Because it's, now I'm showing you guys that I'm not the perfect person in this case. You kind of called me out on the reel that I made when I first put on the UFO coding. And tell me, how should I do it? What did I do? What did go wrong?
So we've done a lot of testing with this to kind of find how's the appropriate way to put it on there. And the average quantity, we want to increase the weight of the chain by 8 to 10 grams.
Okay,
So on the
wow.
bottle, that's going to be 8 to 10 milliliters. And exactly, it is wow. This is why, we would never, ever, ever put 8 milliliters of oil on our chain. It'd be sopping everywhere.
Yeah.
But because wax, we're wanting to create a wax layer that's between all the the plates, the rollers, the pins, getting down inside the chain, and getting it inside the chain is a critical piece there. That, it's going to take, a fair bit of lubricant there because you have the water, the emulsified, the moisture that allows it to be liquid that needs to evaporate and dry away. So that's going to be a component of how much you have there. So to get there, the most common way we found, if you go, over the cassette area, if you're on the ground, you can turn the cranks backwards. You want to go around the chain twice. So having the quick link come around, nice, easy stuff, turning of the cranks. And then you're going to do an additional two coatings on the inside, so down between the derailleur and the crankset, so that inner side.
Uh-huh.
Either which way you go about it, because that's four coatings. The goal is that four coatings, which gives us that average 8 to 10 milliliters. So now,
Got
if you just
you.
stop turning the cranks, you're going to be like, there's a mess all over the outside of my chain.
Yeah,
So when you
yeah,
think
yeah, yeah.
about a normal drivetrain, again, we only have 8 points of articulation. So as the chain goes around, if you only did twice around the chain, that means each link only moved 16 times. And that's not nearly enough for the lubricant to get down inside there. So, we're recommending, continue turning the cranks just a moderate pace, about another 30 seconds after you apply it. That's going to get the wax to go down in there. So that's the
Perfect.
biggest difference we've seen is, it takes a little bit more in this setup phase. And,
Yeah.
we can totally say, yep, it's going to take a little bit more than just, throwing a couple drops of oil on, but it's not nearly as much time as it is to take the chain off and crock pot it and heat it and let it dry and hang and then put it back on and you got the wax underneath, so on and so
Yeah.
forth. So
And you
it's
need to
it's
change
steps in
the
there.
yeah, yeah, and
Yep,
you need to put a new quick click on there and blah blah blah, blah whole thing.
definitely
But
should. Yep.
um you mentioned it as well, but I think it's important to call out, right? That I mean, oil you put on, you can go out and ride it immediately. But with this kind of stuff, you said that it needs to evaporate. Is it water in there, or what? And for how long do I need to wait, like until the bike is rideable, within quotes?
So yeah, it's a water base, and that's what's evaporating there from the chain. The reason you let it dry is so you can get all those benefits of the dry wax on the chain. So if you just apply it on the chain and go ride, you're still going to get the the protection and the lubricity from being a lubricant, but you're not going to get the benefits of it being a dry wax because you now have a liquid wax that has water in it that is going to accumulate debris and such that's in the air. Even a perfectly clean road ride, we've all had that just a little bit of dust on the legs. You start to sweat a little bit. That stuff that's in the air just constantly sticks to our bike, and it's why our oil turns black over time. So
Mm,
that's what we're trying to resist, and the wax will do so when it can be a dry wax. As long as it's wet, stuff's going to still stick to it.
understood. That's. I also had a question. I don't remember who sent it now, but like, how for how long does the chain like kind of stay fresh or new? Like, where because do you have a like ballpark range there? I mean, depends. Like, yeah, now I'm gonna not gonna answer you, but that's what I would say.
So 300 Ks is the tested durability, longevity of the coating, where we see an even test results in the efficiency, and there's no deterioration to the chain itself. Wet conditions will shorten that. Depending on how dry. Here in Colorado, it gets a very, very fine dusty powder. I will, between coatings, I'll wipe that off with a clean cloth. And I usually see 250 to 300 kilometers. It's dustier, so it is kind of getting in there a little bit, but as long as it stays dry, it prevents it from really becoming a problem. So
Yeah,
that 250 to 300 K is the average expected interval there.
that's quite a lot to be honest. In my mind at least. And that kind of again segues to the next topic that I had in mind, and that's talking about sort of cleaning. There's like two ways to clean, right? There's the one where you just clean post ride, right? Maybe
Mhm.
that's not you need to now I'm just showing off that I'm stupid again, but then might not want to go as deep into your cleaning routine, or maybe don't need to. But before you put on new coating, then I guess you need to go a little bit deeper. Can you talk a little bit about that and what is sort of yeah how to go about it?
Yeah, certainly. So it's going to depend on the condition of the ride. So, like I was kind of mentioning, we have these dusty conditions for gravel and such here. If it's a fine coating, if I can still see the details of the chain easily, it doesn't look visually contaminated. Then I'm going by just running a clean cloth over the top of the chain, so that way I take off any of that dust that's kind of settled there. I'm just pulling that away. and then I'll apply a fresh coating on top of that.
Yeah.
So I'll go 5 or 6 coatings in between needing to actually do a drivetrain clean and really get down in there. When we first were doing the testing back in 2017, I think it was with this current formula, I went all summer without actually degreasing and cleaning my drivetrain just to test the efficiency over time of that dry coating.
Wow.
And it was, wildly impressive to stay so stable. So as long as you stay in that nice little range where you can wipe off the dry dust, you can continue to apply and let the wax get down in there, and it really, it stays pretty nice and clean. So when you get the wild cards, the wet and the moisture, things are going to soften, and then it starts to get that pasty type action. That's going to change it. So say when we get to that point, that's where we have our UFO Clean drivetrain. So the product there for cleaning the drivetrain. This is actually what we use in our own facility for prepping chains for the UFO process.
Hmm.
Non-toxic, biodegradable, designed to spray onto the drivetrain and then rinse off. And we did test it over, the grass and in the yard, that kind of stuff, to make sure, we're not leaving dead spots and that kind of stuff. So, it gives you a very easy to use, formula there. Spray it on, you're going to agitate it, you're going to get it wet, let it, kind of do its job, and then you're going to rinse it. And it actually turns white, and then it'll run clear when it's fully rinsed off. So
Ah,
this
okay.
one's been super well received. We now do it in a half-liter size bottle, and it's been a great compliment to the UFO products there because yeah, it's just so simple and easy to clean it. It preps it, and then once it's clean, the chain is clean and dry, then you're ready to apply a fresh coating.
Well, lucky me, I actually used that drivetrain cleaner the other day, and I did it on my lawn. So lucky it
All
was this
safe.
thing then, because then I didn't destroy my just newly made lawn. Okay, cool. And you mentioned as well one thing about like using a kind of product like this when you clean, right? As I understand it as well, you should be a little bit careful because when you do that deep cleaning, you could also sort of get stuff into the bearings, right? And you so you need to be a bit careful with the bearings, right? And there is also this you have bearing grease as one of your products as well. Sort of how does that come into play with the
Yeah, so we
uh,
have a complete range of products now for anything really that we associate with. We work with the drivetrain, we work with the bearings. So we have the drivetrain products and the lubricants, and then for the bearings, we have a bearing cleaner and the bearing grease. So and there's actually also a pulley oil, so bearing oil specifically for the non-loaded bearings on the pulleys. So on things like our standard pulleys or oversized pulleys, those run with just the oil, and it's a light contact seal, and the oil's there just to flush through on the bearings. They're the most exposed bearing on the bike, but also the fastest turning bearing on the bike. So this is where we take some of these choices and how we construct the bearing, non-corrosive metals and such in the races, allow it to have as little drag as possible, and then we're just recommending anytime the bike gets wet, you wash the bike right in the rain, give a couple drops of pulley oil to each of the pulleys. Then you have grease in your bottom bracket and your wheel bearings and such, and that's where you're going to have a longer service interval. The light contact seals that we use and the greases that we use. The grease is really kind of a wet gasket, so it's designed to create a low friction, low drag protection behind the seal itself to keep moisture and contamination out. So when you're washing the bike and that stuff, we don't want to full pressure wash, jet wash directly at the bearings, but general washing and stuff around the
yeah.
bike, it's no different than those forces that are going to happen around hubs and bottom brackets and you're riding through water.
I
So,
have those small pulley wheel oil things, and whenever I've used them, I always like took the whole derailleur apart and put it on. Do I need to do that? I probably need to do that, right?
on a standard size set of pulleys, it's going to depend on the stock derailleur and where the cage is. So sometimes you can access the edge of the seal, other times you can't. But you
Ah,
really got to
okay,
get to the inner edge of the seal, otherwise you're not getting the oil really where it needs to go. The
gotcha.
oversized systems on the back of the cage, next to each pulley bolt, is a small lubrication port, and that right there funnels it right at the edge of the seal, and is shown, proven that we can apply oil there. And as the chain moves backwards and rotate the pulleys, it gets down inside and will clean them.
Cool. I did not know that. That's awesome. I learned a lot of things now. That's super good. Um, and now, so you talked about pulleys, right? And Cermicspeed, you have this oversized pulley wheel system, and there's
Mhm.
other brands that has that too as well. And there's a little bit debate about that as well. Is it worth it because it's quite an investment? Is it just bling? What is it? Can you talk to me a little bit more about like what the physics behind it?
Yeah, I mean, we can't deny that, a fun bike, a bike with some bling, it's a little more fun to ride. You feel a little cooler on it. So I'm not
That
going
is
to say
true.
no to that.
That is true.
But it's not the path that we got there. Where we actually went, we first introduced the OSPW system at the end of 2015. But 3 years earlier, we were working with Friction Facts doing bearing testing, testing how much drag there was in, pulley bearings and we're talking really down into hundreds of a watt of drag in some of these small bearings and such. So there's only so much that we can gain from just addressing the bearing. But then we start looking at the other concepts, what creates a fast or a slow drivetrain, and the chain. So just we spend all this time talking about the UFO products, and it's all about making a chain efficient, and it doesn't have to bend as much, and so on and so forth. If the chain goes around a larger pulley wheel, it's not articulating, it's not bending as much. So since it has to come in and out of that pulley wheel, and the same thing, this the upper one, it has to turn over and then it has to go back to straight towards the cassette. Those four movements, if we can make them where they don't have to move as much, it just automatically saves a little bit of energy. So it's four movements per chain link. So I believe it was somewhere north of 40,000 chain articulations a minute at 95 RPMs with a 53 tooth chain ring. So it's just insane how those little things add up so quickly, and we can address them through chain lubricants and temporary solutions, and then we can also address them through a mechanical engineering solution of make the chain just do less work.
Yeah.
So that's where the larger pulley wheel, the OSPW oversized pulley wheel system, we validated. There was a small outfit in Germany that was before us that was using the concept, and they were making some cages back in the early 2000s. And so we kind of took from that idea and tested it. We took it to the lab and said, is there actually something behind this specifically? And that's where Jason Smith was able to do the testing and show, yeah, there's a mechanical advantage if the chain is doing less work.
That is so super cool. That, I mean, you when you just speak about it like that, then you wonder why not everyone is doing it. But as I understood it, there are some pro Peloton guys that actually buys it for themselves without being sponsored, and that talks to me a lot about the why what it makes, what kind of difference it makes.
I mean, for a long time, the developments in the drivetrain were largely focused in other areas,
Yeah.
more refinement in the number of gears used, so on and so forth. I like it. I always remember the guy that's credited with the development of the derailleur, Paul de Vivi. I just like his name's Paul, so it's got a nice story there to it. The size disc that he used to guide the chain in tension was roughly what we have today as an 11 tooth pulley wheel size. So throughout all the different patents and on dual parallelograms and all the pieces that make a derailleur what it is today, the pulleys were really just there as a manner of function to hold the chain taut and to guide it back and forth. They weren't considered in, are they causing drag or not? So it's the curious minds that get out there, and I think this could be better. I think we could make this smoother to where it consumes less energy, because if there's something to be gained, why not chase it? So
Yeah.
it brings us here, and now you have the expression. You can have different colors on it, and just different pieces that you customize your bike. It's the big spoiler on the back of a car. You might not need it to stay on the road driving to get groceries, but it looks cool because you customized it in a sporty way.
Yeah. Yeah. I get the point. Absolutely. So I think we were kind of running it. I was thinking doing this like for 30 minutes, and we are almost there. But I can see now that we got a question in the comments from Linda, someone that I chatted to with a couple of times, and thank you for the support. She writes like this: When applying, should I count with a bit of a mess underneath around the bike? And I understand what she means. That sort of how do you get the stuff sort of to stay on the chain ways and not basically waste it, right?
Yep. So, this is where when I first start applying, I'll be in front of the cassette a little bit and I'm applying directly onto the top of the chain and then pedaling it backwards slowly. So that way, then as it works around the cassette, it's now going to have the next pulley is going to kind of help, push that lubricant, push the wax in there a little bit, rather than just being able to drip away to the exterior. I move at a fairly moderate pace, maybe a little faster than 1 revolution a second or so. It's just, a moderate tempo, so you're not flinging the wax everywhere, but you're keeping it moving enough that it's not having a chance to then start to move and gravity pull it straight down. So it is a little bit of a balance.
Hmm.
There is always going to be a little bit as it's coming off around like the lower outside of the pulley or at the chain ring if it's getting real heavy there. But that's where just, a nice, easy, moderate stream and then keeping the chain moving, that's going to help it just suck down inside those rollers.
Okay. Now I'm going to ask another stupid question now, and this is for me because I just realized when I put on wax or a coating, I normally only spin it like on one of the sprockets in the
Mhm.
cassette. Should I also like make it sort of go up and down on the cassette so the cassette itself also gets a little bit of coating, or is it mainly I should focus sort of on the chain?
So the chain is definitely the place to focus because that's, pardon me, that's what we're lubricating. The cassette, a little wax on the surface after a few revolutions, it's already going to be gone. So we're not trying to coat the cassette for any kind of beneficial
No.
properties.
All right.
All that being said, I like to shift through the cassette top to bottom
Mm.
because that'll articulate the chain side to side. So while it looks like we're coating the cassette, really I'm just shifting to each
Ah.
extreme so that way the chain gets fully articulated as I'm turning it and
Yeah, yeah,
rotating
yeah.
through,
Whatever those pieces are
enabling,
called, they're
you got it, the
yeah,
links.
yeah, yeah, the
Yep.
links.
So staying in a straight line, you're going to just have to turn and rotate the cranks a bit more. But shifting through from the extremes is allowing to really go through the articulation and think about go ahead and have it turned for at least two full chain rotations around because each link is only getting rotated a little bit when it does that. So it does take a little bit of time to really get the chain all the way through the drivetrain.
Cool. That's then I learned something even more now. Perfect. I love that. And there was a question that came in from Off-Road Social. That's a cool name, by the way. I like it. How's the shifting with the OSPW?
Hey, it's all going to come down to the setup. Really, we focus on upper pulley placement related to the cage and how it interfaces, that kind of stuff. That is super critical. But then you have a minimum chain tension needed for good function there. So how the setup is done, and that's between spring tension and chain length, is going to give you the difference of what the chain tension is, and that's really going to play the biggest part. So we know when we sponsor World Tour teams and such, they're not going to ride these and race these if they feel like it's not going to shift under load and it's not going to respond as necessary. We've now had these in the market since the started shipping in the spring of 2016. So we've had a really good experience with these over multiple generations of group sets out there. And our gold standard, of course, is always a minimum of matching that OE shift quality and responsiveness. And then if there's any other characteristics that we can improve upon, those come after that focus of the shift quality.
Gotcha.
So any questions on how does it shift, how does it compare, how does it relate? Really comes down to making sure was the setup dialed spot on. So it takes a little more focus than the OE derailleur, and that's a big difference of they're producing tens of thousands of these quite regularly, and just have so many more out there with a wider range of
Yeah.
tolerances.
I mountain mine by myself. Was it March? I've been running it since March, I think, and I think it's super smooth to be honest. But maybe I was just lucky putting it on. Then. So another question that came in from Off-Road Social, and that's actually a good question because I should have asked that as well. Inside of this bottle, I don't know if you can
Yeah.
hear it. Can you hear it?
Mm-hmm.
What is that and why?
So it's just a nut or an agitator, and it's there just to help make sure the wax stays evenly blended. So as it goes through different temperatures, gets warmer and cooler, that kind of stuff. By being non-toxic, non-flammable, being a water-based emulsion, over time as it sits and goes through temperatures, it wants to kind of settle a little bit, and the ingredients will try to separate. So including that in there allows it to really help blend it a lot better and keep it as smooth and fluid as possible.
Cool. Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. Maybe everyone should have that. Another question that came in, I can see now, Ocolo Bike. Are racers using Cermicspeed for mountain biking?
Yep, yep, yeah. We have a handful of teams this season that are running wheel bearings and bottom bracket bearings. I know we have some different athletes also running our OSPWX systems. We don't have anything compatible on the transmission drivetrain just yet, but I can say we are actively working on it, looking to maintain those current compatibilities for sure. So, but yeah, we have a lot of riders that have been using Cermicspeed and Cermicspeed X products off road and for mountain bike for years.
Yeah, and I guess that should speak to the durability of those ceramic bearings as well, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's a
Um,
core piece for us.
yeah, that's super cool. Um, another type of bearing that you guys, I don't remember when you launched it, but can you speak to me about the stereo bearings, the non that's now supposed to be sort of that you don't need to maintain? How is that even possible?
Yeah, so that's our SLT bearings, the solid lubricant technology. Something that we actually learned from first on our industrial side. We used these in a food production facility that needed a bearing to hold up against a lot of standardization and cleaning and such. Solid lubricant basically is a polymer that is baked into the bearing. So it goes in as a liquid and then it's hardened. And so now the balls and everything, all the physical space inside the bearing are completely filled up, not by a grease that's that's porous, but actually by a solid polymer that's infused with oil. So it has a higher drag coefficient to it for sure because there's constant contact everywhere, but it can't have any contamination or any issues coming with moisture and such getting inside the bearing. So there's nothing to maintain, so there's no maintenance to do. So this is fantastic on things like headsets and pivot bearings where they don't need the super efficiency of a hybrid ceramic bearing, but rather they want the ultra durability. And we found the best way to do that is through this solid lubricant technology, that polymer.
And now this is not just my guess, but when you have those headsets with integrated cables and stuff, that's not so easy to take out and maintain those bearings. That's a perfect application, I would presume.
The timing here seems to have been absolutely perfect. The look of a fully integrated bike is certainly super clean and pro. But yeah, the downside there is if you have one of those designs that's just prone to having moisture and contamination getting in there, definitely going to be an ideal fix for that to give longer life between any needed service or checking it out.
Yeah, I might have to look into that in the near future, without saying too much about new bikes with integrated pieces on them. This has been super fun, Paul. Thank you very much for taking the time. Is there anything that you would like to round off with?
No, this was a ton of fun. It's been a while since I got to join one of these, so very happy to talk some of the new products and things that can help for all types of riding and connect with guys over on the European side. So thank you
Super.
for having me on and using the products.
Thank you, Paul, and enjoy the rest of the day. I'm soon going to bed myself. It's past my bedtime. No,
Back
not
to
really.
work here at home.
Exactly, exactly. Oh, before we end, I just want to know what's your next ride?
My next ride,
Hmm.
probably be commuting to the office tomorrow for the next time I'm hopping on a bike. But probably getting out in some mountain biking here in the autumn. This is prime season for that here in Colorado.
That sounds great. Colorado, I would love to go back there. I've been there once, but I would love to go there to cycle as well. I skied last time I was there.
Come on over. We'll show you around.
I would love to. I'll take that definitely any day of the week. I'll just have to talk to my family first. Super. Thank you very much.
No
Enjoy the
problem.
rest of the day. Cheers.
Thanks, Marcus.
Bye.
Cheers.